The siege of Masada is most remembered for the tragic end of the Jewish rebels' last stand against Roman domination. After Jerusalem had been destroyed, a small number of Zealots stormed the fortress of Masada and lay in wait for the final Roman attack. But before going into details about this, we will continue where we left off. Once Jerusalem had been destroyed, Titus and his men returned to Rome in 71 AD. After the three-day festivities staged by the Roman army, the soldiers' work was rewarded by the emperor, and several trophies were handed out. Meanwhile, the Jewish elite were robbed of their wealth and property, and the fate of the Jewish survivors was sealed in brutal slave and death scenes. Titus's ascent is characterized by a triumphal parade, where Jewish prisoners were displayed as evidence of Roman domination. To achieve his victory, Vespasian commissioned the grandiose building of the Temple of Peace, decorated with treasures from Jerusalem. It became a symbol of Roman triumph and domination, perpetuating the memory of the Jews' defeat. Although Jerusalem was captured in September 70 AD, the Romans still lacked total control of Judea. The new regional commander and successor to Titus, Sextus Lucilius Bassus, pushed forward to deal with the remaining resistance in 71 AD. 1 year later, as Bassus was rounding up Jewish refugees from Jerusalem and Machaerus, he fell ill and died. He was succeeded by the legate Lucius Flavius Silva, who marched towards the last redoubt of Jewish resistance, the mountain fortress of Masada. When Jerusalem fell, slightly less than 1,000 zealots fled to this mountain on the shores of the Dead Sea. The fortress of Masada had been built originally by the Hasmoneans and fortified by Herod the Great. The path to it was extremely dangerous and was known as the Serpent. Being so narrow, it forced people to walk in single file. But it was the perfect place for the Zealots to find refuge and continue their resistance against Roman domination. Flavius Josephus, who witnessed the events, gave a detailed account on the Masada battles. The Sicarii, which is how the more radical group of Zealots were called, took over the fortress, resulting in a time of great resistance. During the Jewish Passover, they stormed a neighboring village called En Gedi, striking terror and proving that they were committed to outwitting their opponents. Led by Eleazar, a descendant of Judas of Galilee, the Masada Sicarii were ready to face the Roman army led by General Silva. The numerical difference was great, but the Sicarii resolved to continue resisting since they refused to surrender. When Commander Silva arrived to seize the fortress, the Romans built a great wall to surround the mountain, and, to defeat it, they devised a super high ramp, which was a novelty at the time. In the spring of 73 AD, the decisive moment happened, with the Zealots fighting to the bitter end, choosing death over surrender. The Romans hurled stones and arrows and raised battering rams to demolish the walls, but the defenders rose up a second barrier made of earth and wood to fend off the projectiles. Only General Silva found a solution and ordered the barrier to be set on fire. Smoke and ashes overtook the fortress, causing the Romans to retreat for a moment. But a wind shift brought the legionnaires close to the last defensive line of Masada. It was the decisive point. On April 16, 73 AD, the last protective walls of Masada were breached, sealing the tragic fate of its defenders. Eleazar saw that his men had nowhere else to run and urged them to adopt drastic strategies to avoid capture by the Romans. He told his men to choose death over slavery, stating that this was God's will. The Zealots decided, as Josephus tells us, to set fire to their own fortress to avoid Roman capture. They chose by lot who would be responsible for taking the lives of their own fellows. This tragic outcome left the fortress of Masada in utter ruin. The Romans seemed to have finally settled their troubles in Judea. 7 years later, the now new emperor, Titus, finished building the Flavinian Amphitheater, popularly known as the Colosseum. This was to be a symbol of the Roman victory over the Jews, and was funded by the spoils of the First Jewish-Roman War and the sacking of Jerusalem. Now in Rome, Flavius Josephus, the former Jewish rebel, stood by Titus as his ally. He was given a house by the emperor, Roman citizenship, and an annual pension for his services to the empire. In 82, Titus's brother, Domitian, decreed to build another monument to celebrate the Roman conquest in Judea and, at that time, to honor Titus, who had only just died. The famous Arch of Titus was built and adorned with reliefs showing the Romans carrying the spoils of war of Jerusalem. The first Jewish revolt became a tragic episode in history, punctuated by the resistance of Jewish rebels against Roman rule. If you enjoyed learning more about this historic event, please like the video and subscribe to our channel.